This is a public hearing, and we are the Putnam County Planning Commission. We're the designated local planning agency for the county as prescribed in Chapter 163 of Florida statutes, and we function under the authority of Article 11 and 12 of the Putnam County Land Development Code. The primary responsibility of the commission is to serve as an advisory board to hear and make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners on matters related to provisions of and proposed amendments to Putnam County Comprehensive Plan and Putnam County Land Development Code. The members of this board will review each application and make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners at their next regularly scheduled meeting on September the 22nd, 2026. Procedurally, we will call each case by name and number, and a member of the staff will then briefly explain to us the nature of each request. We will then take any comments from the applicant or their representative, followed by public comment concerning the request. Please direct all comments or statements to the board and not to the other people in the audience. Before speaking, we will ask each person to be recognized, come forward to the lectern, and identify his or herself by name and address. After all persons wishing to speak have been heard, we will entertain a motion from the board. This motion will be voted on by the board members and become recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners will make the final determination regarding the application. All applicants have the right to withdraw their request at any time during the application process. The following cases were advertised as being considered for today's meeting will not be heard. There are none. If the applicant chooses to have these cases heard at a later date, the case will, that doesn't matter. Okay. So, first, do we have any ex parte communications?
No, sir.
How about conflicts of interest?
No, sir.
Mr. Chairman, while I think I could be fair, I will, in this particular case, I won't be making any comments and I won't be taking the vote. I'm going to recuse or remove myself due to my affiliations.
For the one case that we have on the
For this one single case today, yes.
Works for me. All right. Let's see. Number one. Let's see. Let's rearrange this agenda a little bit and go ahead and run through. No, we need to handle election office first, don't we? I guess that was directed at the attorney. I'm sorry. We need to handle?
No, you want to do the case first?
Well, would it be improper to not handle the?
No, I think it'll be fine. The board can, it's at your
Go ahead and get
discretion.
the case
It's
out of
okay.
the way, and then we'll handle the
Right.
administrative stuff after.
Right.
Okay.
Since
Yeah, let's do
it's
that.
more of an in-house thing.
Take it away, Michael.
Thank you. For the record, Michael Graves, Planning and Development Services. This is case REZ 26-000009. The Palatka Shrine Club is requesting a zoning map amendment from agriculture to commercial general C3 on a 9.78 acre property located at 116 Yellington Road in East Palatka to establish a boat and trailer storage. Surrounding zonings include agriculture, commercial 3, commercial intensive, C4, public use light, P1, and public use heavy, P2. The subject site has a future land use designation of urban service, US, and the lands have approximately 700 feet of frontage on Yellington Road. According to the National Wetlands Layer and the FEMA Flood Zone Layer on the GIS reference map, the lands do not appear to contain wetlands and is primarily located within FEMA Flood Zone X, which is not a special flood hazard area. Should the applicant's request be approved, the applicant will then need to progress through DRC for any commercial development allowed by right in the Commercial General C3 zoning district. Here you can see an aerial overview of the property. Here you can see a future land use projection. Here you can see the zoning. It is staff's recommendation of approval of the request to amend the zoning map from agriculture to commercial general C3. Staff finds that the proposed rezoning is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the adopted comprehensive plan and meets the locational requirements of the commercial general C3 zoning district provided in the Land Development Code and comprehensive plan. Are there any questions?
Doesn't look like it. All right. The owner's rep here. wish to speak?
Good evening, Board. Chase Barnes, 101 Lisa Lane. I'm the agent for the Putnam County Shrine Club. Also have the potential lessees, excuse me, if you have any comments or questions for them. Don't have much to add that Michael didn't already add. We just have a portion of the space that's unused, and opened it up to the public, and Mr. Stone has a potential use for it and want to give it a shot and see how it goes.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have any questions for the owner's rep?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, the site, I don't see a site plan kind of depicting the storage area versus the possible use of the flea market. Where would the boat storage be located?
So the property already has a fenced-in portion that was utilized for several years by UPS. So it's, 8-foot chain link fence. That would be the space that would be utilized for the boat and trailer storage because it's already secured. The flea market would be on the, we've got a carve out in our lease. I'd be happy to share that with you, but I didn't bring that with me at the moment. But basically it would just be the eastern portion of the property, kind of from the driveway that exists currently to the east, to the boundary lines. Once this is approved, the Shrine Club intends to run a fence to separate the two. Not that that matters to the board, but there would be a barrier between the Shrine Club and their primary parking lot, and then a new entrance for Mr. Stone and what he plans to do next door.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes.
Any more questions for these guys? No? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, looks like we have one card for public comment. Dwight Stone. Oh, that was you? Okay. Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry. I missed that. That's I should pay better attention. Okay. Okay, nobody else from the public here to speak, so I guess we'll bring it back to the board for discussion.
Mr. Chair, I do have a question for Michael. Michael, if you don't mind. So if this thing is approved for C3 zoning, it talks about how a buffer, a 20-foot perimeter buffer shall be required if any expansion, intensification, or redevelopment occurs on the parcel. And the orientation of the parcel is kind of unique, but the portion that is up against the correctional institution, I guess you guys are considering that like the northeast buffer. That would suffice as for the buffer that's required, correct?
Generally speaking, yes, sir. If you saw on the aerial overview in the packet and on the screen when it was displayed, on that northeast side, it is heavily wooded already, of course, and there is the old CSX line, which is predominantly wooded as well. There is some on that northeast section of the property. You know how it kind of has the 5 sides to it. That northeast side would potentially need to have a fence and a row of evergreen canopy trees if one is not already provided there to establish the 20B buffer as required. Beyond that, that will be something for the Development Review Committee to decide at the time of development for if any additional buffers beyond that are needed. The Development Review Committee will need to meet for whatever development they decide to do, be it the flea market or the open storage, just to ensure that all regulations of the Land Development Code are being followed, ranging from parking to stormwater management and everything in between.
Okay, all right. So the second question is, so kind of dividing this thing into half, you have your C3 zoning, which would allow the open storage, but if they wanted to go forward with the flea market, it would require the special use permit.
Correct.
And the special use permit would have to go through DRC, looking at the traffic flow of things, anticipating about 175 trips per day is what they're showing. So if Public Works determines that something needs to be done on that roadway to handle that additional load, the applicant will be responsible for taking those actions?
So the special use permit itself wouldn't go to DRC. The special use permit would go to the Administrative Deviation Committee for approval or denial. But then the plans after the special use permit would go to Development Review Committee. The Public Works Department is part of the Development Review Committee, and they would make that determination at that time. Generally speaking, it does fall on the shoulders of the developer to make off-site improvements as necessary for their development.
So the administrative review of the special use permit occurs administratively, and does DRC look at it before the administrative approval is granted or after?
Generally, DRC will meet after a special use permit. However, they can be run concurrently as they are two separate applications. The special use permit would be granting the rights to have a flea market somewhere on this property, whereas DRC would be the way of saying that this is the exact design, this is the exact location, here's where it's going to be, and here's the parking that's going to go for it, here's the fire safety plan, here's the landscaping, etc.
Okay. All right, that's all the questions I have.
The flea market's not allowed in the current ag zoning? They don't have something similar to that? In the
Flea
ag
markets are only allowed in the C3 and C4 zoning district with a special use permit. In the agriculture zoning district with a special use permit, you could have a farmer's market, which is notably different than a flea market.
How so?
Farmers markets are only for produce, livestock, and other agriculture-related products, whereas flea markets can be theoretically anything from handicrafts to artwork to traditional quote-unquote junk products, if you will.
Gotcha.
Check stuff.
Yeah. I guess probably the main question I have is, how do you guys reconcile the fact that there's no other zoning? Like I feel like we're creating an enclave there. I mean, it'd be one, I'll tell you where I'm at. So this was kind of the same thing that we had on the property in Satsuma that was one block off of 17, came up, I don't know, last meeting or the meeting before. We had separation from what should have been the commercial corridor. There was a separation of residential property, and I don't see how we're not in the kind of same scenario here.
So the difference between that case and...
Residential was around that.
Correct. The difference between that case and this case, there are several. Number one being that the previous case had a future land use of rural residential as well. Rural residential trying to become commercial, even with a map amendment out of the rural residential, is much different than having a property that already has a future land use that's designated as urban directly across the street from a public facility, in fact sandwiched between two public facilities as you see here, that already has commercial on a big corridor nearby, separated by only a single parcel from a commercial heart of the county, essentially. The other one was in a remote location, not directly adjacent to a highway, but essentially scattered along a highway, whereas this one is in a designated commercial nodal area that just happens to be separated by a single parcel between it and the commercial development.
But you already have a commercial operation right next to that. Once a year, I know the Putnam County Fair takes place, and I think you can also rent that facility as well during the year.
Correct. In addition to that, the fact that the Shrine Club there is already there is also in its own right non-conforming with the agriculture zoning district. Clubs, be they private or public or even the more modern form of club, requires a minimum of commercial 3 zoning. If nothing else, this zoning is bringing it into compliance with modern regulations, which is always a benefit. The urban service future land use category in Article A.1.9.4.A.3, point B, is saying says that the agriculture zoning district is a holding district in the urban service future land use category, and while agricultural uses are allowed to continue so long as it remains agriculturally zoned, it is in the county's best interest to rezone agriculturally zoned properties out of the agriculture zone in the urban service future land use category whenever the opportunity arises.
What's the use of the property to the northwest?
To the northwest, excuse me for just a
Church?
I mean, that's a residence on the corner, right? And there are a residence or two
Oh, yeah.
at the intersection there, but what's the,
I'm afraid I do not know what the one to the northwest is, sir.
There's a church parcel to the northwest. You have a small residence in the triangle, which I would consider that the northeast corner. I think that's a residence. And then
Let's see.
open Bible.
The map will load. It appears to be a church, sir.
It's an open Bible church.
That's a church. And there's a residence on the corner. Is there a residence in the small triangle lot, between the subject property and that corner right there on Yelvington, between the parking lot, like,
That appears to be the case, yes, sir.
is that a residence? Okay.
Looks like it.
It appears to be a residence, yes, sir.
Okay.
Though whether or not it is active, I cannot speak to that at this time.
What's on the, other corner, 104?
I was out there today. That's a house. I didn't know it was past it, but
That appears to be another residence as well.
two houses right there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm on the fence with this one. I mean, we're about to allow, very much in. I mean, it's one thing when the fair's there, but the fair's only there once a year.
Yeah.
This is gonna be,
No, we still have the jail.
this is gonna have to be yeah, but the jail doesn't get
Jail is,
much traffic.
I know, but it's loud and cumbersome.
Michael, can you go back to the street view and show me the fence that Mr. Barnes was referencing earlier? Because I drove the site today and I don't recall seeing that fenced-in area.
Let's see if I can spot it. I do not. Up to the right.
Okay.
Ah,
It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing?
there it is.
People that are gonna store their items there aren't
Give
gonna
give
be
us your,
coming in
give
and
us
out
your
every
name
day.
and address again there, so they'll have it on
Yeah.
record.
Pardon me?
Give us your name and address again
Oh,
there, so they have it on
Dwight
record.
Stone, and my home address is 337 Russ Circle, Spring Hill, Florida.
Okay,
We have a couple Airbnbs up here, and we're looking to move up here too. But it would be a 3-day-a-week thing, not every 7 days. And there's that buffer zone of storage where people don't come in and out every day. You know, if they bring a boat in, they might come in once a month or once a week. We don't know, you know. I have people at another storage place I have, and they come in never. They've been there 2 years and never been back, you know, so it's not a constant flow of traffic into that area.
okay. Any more questions? All right. Thank you.
Can I make a quick comment, just not to overstep, but I just want to piggyback what Michael said. Currently, the Shrine Club, which we all agree has been there and established itself, is a non-conforming use for the current zoning. So we're not necessarily, my understanding, approving a flea market today. That still has to go through separate processes. We're just approving the zoning. And for nothing else, this needs to be rezoned to C3 just to get the Shrine Club where it should currently be. So I just wanted to reiterate that one fact so that it didn't go unnoticed.
One more thing if I could. Also, on the back of the property, it's not something we'll be using. It's part of the Shriners Club, but it's wooden. So even the church behind it wouldn't be affected because there's a buffer zone there of trees that we won't be using. That would be if the Shriners Club ever used it, Shriners Club ever used
Okay.
it.
That would be too wet to develop, so that will
Oh, it's
remain,
wet.
yeah.
I understand, but
Thank you.
once it's approved, then you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, there's a difference between allowing a non-conforming structure to continue use and then approving it for all uses in that zoning. I'm only one voice up here, but I don't know that I'm for it.
So, Mr. Chair, my thought process earlier was this, because I kind of reflected back to the previous meeting when we had the very similar situation. And to compare and contrast, the difference that I see is the other one was really within close proximity of residences. And I think we had a large showing of residents that were opposed to it. I know the existing area across the street is the fairground area. You had the existing use of the Shrine Club, that's been there forever. I can see them desiring to get into conformity with the current code. I'm okay with, honestly, I'm okay with the storage unit there as well, knowing the requirements for the buffers. My biggest issue was, or is, the potential flea market use. And I know that has to be approved administratively through the special use permit. So I don't have as many concerns for this one because of it being potentially a spot zoning for C3, because there's already, the use is kind of already there. We don't have a room full of residents opposing it. So I understand where you're coming from. I had the same thought process, but I think I worked my way back out of that saying I'm okay with it. The only thing I have consternation about is the flea market issue, and that's going to be on staff shoulders, not ours.
I got you. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. I just, there's 3 residents right there that are about to be adversely affected. I mean, from the increased traffic. Not that, they may not care, and it may be that that's fine, but I just, it's tough for me having just denied one a month ago or 2 months ago to come back and have what, in my opinion, is almost not quite identical, but pretty close to the same scenario. It would be different if one of those adjacent properties was C3, like that would, or it was, if it had a commercial zoning already, then this would be,
There's a lot more
this
going on
this would
out
be a
this
non-issue.
than it was on that piece down
Right.
there. A lot more,
so,
a lot more heavy stuff.
And thinking deeper, talking about the potential flea market 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I know there aren't that many residents in and around that area, but you keep traveling down Yellington, you start getting into more of a residential setting, along with obviously an ag setting. My concern, which led to my question earlier about the public works review of this from a roadway perspective, just want to make sure that things don't get jammed up. And the fair happens once a year. It's 1 week. You know it's happening. You prepare for it. But on every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 52 weeks throughout the year, you have that kind of congestion, potential congestion. It just needs to be thought through and reviewed and determined that, okay, we can do this and it doesn't have an adverse impact, or if it does, are the people going to use it, that's going to be using it, are they going to take care of the issue for the county to turn lane, whatever the case may be. That's my biggest concern.
Mr. Chair, may I? I just wanted to add some light too on the Administrative Deviation Committee's process. We have to hold a public meeting very similar to this format, whereby we would send out notifications to surrounding property owners. We'd post signs on the property, and we'd bring them in to be considered by the committee itself, which is represented by the Deputy County Administrator of Administration, Deputy County Administrator of Operations, the executive directors of both Development Services and Public Works, as well as the planning manager position. So it's not just me making the decision or just Nancy or Michael making the decision. It's a committee of people. We have to vote on it. It's there are conditions that can be placed. And we do consider public comment in that forum as well.
I understand. I've been abused in that setting as well. So, yeah, I mean, I'll entertain a motion one way or the other. I don't know what you guys want to do with it, but
I'll make a motion. I recommend that we approve the rezoning of REZ 26-000009 as it is consistent with the goals and objectives and policies of the Putnam County Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
all right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes no. So, all right. It looks like it'll be recommended for approval to the county commissioners at their next meeting. Congratulations, guys. All right. That's the only thing on the agenda for case-wise. Number 2 on here is pursuant to the motion from Planning Commission, discussion of Land Development Code, Article 11, Division 3, Citizens Board, and possible election of officers. I think the whole point behind that was we've been without an actual acting president or an actual president the whole time. Do we want to make an adjustment to remedy that problem?
I think we got chairman, if that's okay.
Mr.
I think you called the chairman, not the president.
Or whatever. Y'all know what I meant. I'm sorry. Chairman, not president.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So I would say absent of any knowledge, unless there's knowledge.
Did they get in touch with,
I don't know.
anybody talk?
So I'll initiate the discussion. So we have had conversations, not me, but planning staff has had conversations with Ms. Roberts, and she is improving, but she still was not able to attend today. I don't know that I really need to add more information aside from that. She's communicating with us. She knows kind of the matter at hand. She's just not been able to attend. The Land Development Code really does not contemplate the circumstance that we are in. Really, the only language that kind of speaks to this situation is 45-905. This is for all citizen boards, so zoning board included, and then other boards that may fall under our purview. It's got 2 subsections. A, the members of each board shall annually, at the first meeting of the new calendar year, elect a chair and vice chair from among the members, and may create and fill other offices as the board deems needed. Subsection B, the chair and vice chair shall serve for 1 year, but may be re-elected. They will serve until they officially notify the department of their inability to serve, or until a successor is appointed, whichever occurs first. The chair shall preside over all meetings and is a voting member. In the event of the chair's absence, the vice chair shall preside. In the event that both the chair and vice chair are absent, the other board members shall elect a temporary chair to preside. In addition to that, Robert's Rule of New Orders also really doesn't contemplate this specific scenario. It really only contemplates whether or not you guys have the discretion to vote to remove her from the board. Is that correct?
Based on malicious behavior, something that you would go to court for, something illegal.
So to get that on the record, based on malicious behavior, something that you could go to court for, something illegal. So misfeasance, malfeasance, which again, I don't believe that we are in that predicament either. So with that, I believe that the 45-905B in part gives this board the discretion to discuss amongst themselves and decide whether or not it is appropriate now to appoint a new chair or to leave matters as they are and allow time to flush this out.
Well, there's actually two items here. The fact that she is the chair, but also she's a member. And from a quorum standpoint, not that we'd have to worry about it today, but we're down one person in addition to her being the chair.
Two. Now, two people. Did somebody quit or resign?
We do have I believe, there is one vacancy on this commission.
But I would have felt better if Susan would have said, hey, I need to take a leave of absence for 7 months because I have a medical condition, but I'll be back on this particular date. But officially, I'm not hearing that she's corresponded with you as the vice chair or you as,
Can we do a 6-month vacant
It's,
chair?
it's gonna renew in January. In January, we're gonna do all this again. So we're really just doing from here to the end of the year.
And just let it roll, don't we? But can we just let it roll as it is?
That's the discretion of the board.
well,
but-
we
but
have been
yes.
rolling for 7 months,
We only
right?
got a couple more to get there.
We've only got a couple more to go without creating havoc.
I think the
guess.
discussion came up last time because I was gonna miss and so I guess what's the procedural thing if we don't have, if I'm acting chair, not president, and and I'm not here, then we don't have an acting vice chair
So if
We will elect one at that time.
At that time.
at that time? Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
That's fine with me.
it would be temporary. If you're not here and Ms. Roberts is not here, then the sitting members that attend that meeting that day would elect who is going to be our chair. And that's all that the code identifies. I think for posterity, it would probably be wise for us to have a temporary chair and vice chair for that meeting, but it's just for that one meeting.
Okay, fair enough.
And then you'll be right back in where you're at.
Back in trouble.
But
All right.
with due caution and care and all the other stuff, it might make sense just to let it roll. We've been doing it for 7 months, another 3 or 4 months isn't gonna matter, and perhaps she will come back in that particular time period. And again, I've known Susan for 54 years. We graduated Crescent City High School in 1972. So she can be interesting.
Fair enough. All right, I think we're pretty much all in agreement on that one. All right, moving on, new business. Discussion and possible action concerning the rescheduling of regularly scheduled planning commission meeting on November 11th due to its occurrence on Veterans Day, a federal holiday.
Y'all
Yes,
have
sir.
any, cases for that day?
Good question. Not at this time. We've not received applications at this time. However, the application deadline would be the first Monday of October. So there's still some time between then and now for us to receive applications. What staff is proposing is to conduct our planning commission meeting on November 4th, which is the week prior. It still gives staff ample time to review the application, put together the report, conduct our notice and notification requirements, bring that item to this board as to not cause any additional delays. And what I mean by additional delays is if the November Planning Commission meeting is canceled, they get passed on to the December Planning Commission meeting. And then, of course, typically the BOCC cancels the second meeting of December because of the Christmas holiday. So staff's anticipation here is that by holding Planning Commission on November 4th, it really would not cause any delays more than what we normally would see.
Does it have to be on a Wednesday?
It does not, so.
We just bumped it forward one day to the 10th?
We could not, well, the 10th would be a little hairy because the boardroom is going to be occupied that morning for the Board of County Commissioners. And we don't know yet what that agenda will entail. But Kristen did go through the exercise of trying to identify when this room is going to be free. It looks like essentially it'll be Monday the 2nd through Friday the 6th, that entire week. Monday the 9th, Friday the 13th, Monday the 16th, Thursday the 19th, Friday the 20th. And then from there, we start getting into the Thanksgiving week. And we wouldn't have enough time to advertise for those BOCC meetings, because again, the BOCC meetings are going to be kind of in limbo as well.
All right, the 4th's fine with me. Y'all want to move it forward 1 week?
That's fine.
All right. Make a motion? Do we need a motion for that? Or you just want to make the,
We can do, as they do in the BOCC, a wave of acceptance, if you're good with November 4th.
We're good.
yeah, I'm good with the 4th. Same time? Is 4th at the same time?
Yes, sir. I mean, that's what we were proposing, is just
Okay.
a week sooner.
That suits me.
Though Kristen needs to come out early to let us know, because some of us forget.
Yes, thank you.
Kristen will call us.
Well, we will still maintain a very similar schedule for submitting you guys the agendas. So it would be sometime last week, second to last week of October, the agenda would go out noticing you that it's November 4th.
As long as somebody calls me on the 4th.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't call me, I will not be here. Oh, really? Nice. All right. Let's see, do we have any old, I didn't hit the old business line. Do we have, anybody have any old business? No? That was the first topic of new business. I've got something under new business. This is something that Zach and I encountered here a little while back, a couple weeks ago. And I asked, there's been a bunch of questions asked about it. So in reviewing stuff that has to go to the DRC, one of the things that's come up in some projects recently, and I've had questions about from other contractors, is for accessory use structures in an already established commercial zoning. Like, for example, I've got a commercial office building and I want to build just one of those metal carports or a handy house in the back that just is storage or utility building. For a contractor to come in and pull a permit to set a utility building or have one of those carport buildings put in, it requires involvement of the DRC. And it seems counterproductive to have to go through all that red tape for something that is accessory to an already existing and established use. So, and if you guys disagree with me, then so be it. But I think there needs to be an easier path administratively to make it where that doesn't take weeks and having to schedule DRC meetings and all to be approved without it having to fall on the shoulders of Zach, who does have the ability as the director to sign off on some of that easier stuff. But I don't think it should all fall on him. I think we should work into the code language a path to zoning approval that doesn't require all the extra red tape.
Is there a size limitation?
Well, so that's been back and forth. So there's a handful of different places where you can delineate the size. One of those is at 1,200 square feet, where the state of Florida makes a delineation between like Division I contractors and then having to require an engineer. The next step up is, I don't know, 2,000. There's one goes all the way up to 4,500 square feet. Was it, Zach? Was that?
Well, so there's our land development code as of right now, the threshold is 250 square feet. So any additional use or structure that's larger than 250 square feet is subject to DRC review. It does have some language in the code that says, if it's an uncomplicated development, then the director of Development Services has the discretion to waive DRC or to just have what I call a desktop DRC, but you essentially send it to those reviewing agents that would have something to say. The challenge, aside from that, so yes, there's the 1,200 threshold in the Florida Building Code that distinguishes a contractor and an engineer. And then Water Management District is 4,000 square foot structure or 9,000 square foot impervious, and that's what is the threshold for stormwater. The challenge with assigning a square footage is you can have a 1,200 square foot building that results in less traffic than a 300 square foot drive-through ATM. And so the question then still becomes, okay, well, it's not larger than, 1,200 square feet, this drive-through ATM, but it would result in 38 trips additional a day. So based off of that conversation that you and I had, Mr. Morris, I had directed Michael to do a canvass of surrounding counties and some cities within Putnam County and outside of Putnam County. And unfortunately, there's really no clear-cut answer. You've got some jurisdictions that go based off of trip count. You've got some jurisdictions that say, 1,000 square foot. You have some jurisdictions that say any new development, period, no matter what. So it does seem to be a community-based decision. I just don't know that it's a decision that anyone really wants to tackle, because no matter what, we try to legislate for the best interest of our constituents and our businesses, but there's going to be something down the road that still causes some question for the changed legislation.
So is there a recommendation on the square footage according to the Florida code of 1,200 or?
I went through this, and I put up a building. It was a pole barn, basically. And it was, it turned out to be, it was 3,400 square foot. But it was on an existing lot in Putnam County. And it ended up going through the DRC, and it was painful for me. But looking back, it was needed, because there were a lot of things that came up about, I had to get an engineer, a civil engineer, to make sure I wasn't flooding out the neighbors with this pole barn. And then I had to, the only thing that I didn't agree with was the buffers that they wanted, which I'm not gonna get into that. But, because there was residential zoning surrounding my property at the time. So I understand that you don't like it, but I really think that it was beneficial to the community for me to do what happened, to go through the DRC, whether I liked it or not. And I didn't, because it cost me money. But the bottom line is I think it was the right thing to do.
That's just misery.
That's just my
That's
opinion.
just misery loves company.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm not in the
Well,
business anymore.
I've heard a lot of complaints, and I've been involved in some of these projects too, and so I've heard tons of complaints about how difficult it is to do these small projects like that, and I don't even know if it's a square footage number as much as it is a value number that can be placed on it, because when you're talking about adding a $2,500 shed or even a $10,000 shed to a property that's worth $500,000, that's not, it doesn't make financial sense to the people that we want to develop these pieces to have to invest all that money in addition to what their investment is for the actual thing that's going to produce whatever it is they're producing. So, and I don't know, obviously we're not going to solve this problem today, but just I wish it could be kept at the forefront of our discussions as we move forward to give our contractors and our citizens a little bit of relief from the red tape side of that. Because we do have, on our side, we're used to it. We're used to this kind of stuff. And we're used to the people coming in here and asking for stuff, and we know a lot of the answers of what has to happen, but John Q. Public coming in here, it seems they take it very much as a adversarial relationship when they try to get something done, and it's so difficult to get done from something that the layperson sees as what it should be a simple procedure. So if I come in here and say, well, I want to put up a 20 by 20 carport behind my office building so that when I drive to work, my car doesn't get rained on, that becomes not a $2,500 project. It becomes a $5,000 or $7,000 project and an extra 2 months to do it when those guys could have put it up over the weekend. So I just would like to see us move forward to help our citizens, our fellow citizens out to ease up some of this.
Perhaps we could get
Red tape.
the recommendation
I would
at
think.
another meeting on some thoughts.
Well, I mean, in terms of a recommendation, it's very difficult for me to be the one person to make any sort of recommendation, obviously, because my words carries a lot more weight than some words of other citizens or what have you. It is cumbersome when somebody is wanting to do a 720 square foot carport to park their cars at their office, and we have to justify why that structure doesn't need to go to DRC, but a 500 square foot storage building that's got paint and chemicals in it does. And it's, where do you draw the line? At the very end of the day, with the way that Florida statutes identify different exemptions, you can put a 20,000 square foot pole barn up on a livestock ranch without a permit whatsoever, just a site plan. But then a 500 square foot storage building on a commercial property requires DRC and a survey and landscaping and fire review and parking and so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to the concern of health, safety, and welfare for a commercial piece of property that is open to the public and any member of public can come in. So you get your exemptions for the ag because, of course, we're trying to promote agricultural production in the state of Florida. You get additional exemptions if it's your residence because you are intimately familiar with your own home and you can walk through it blindfolded. But when it's commercial, any person, any walk of life, any handicap could come into that property, and now they are subject to injury or loss of life if it's not planned and laid out and we identify these safety measures. So sitting here in this chair, as much as I would love to make a recommendation, I really don't know that it's my place to make a recommendation. If you guys have a direction that you want us to pursue, whether it's more appropriate to do it as a square footage threshold, a trip count threshold, a valuation threshold, a percentage of improvement of the property, like 2% of the property size, something like that. If you want to give us that direction to do some research and look at other jurisdictions, maybe not just those that surround us immediately, but like for like counties, Baker County, Okeechobee County, Bradford County, those we might find different allowances for commercial development than we would just around us in Northeast Florida.
Yeah, my expectation was not for you to make a recommendation today, but to do some research on it and just come back to it.
Well, and I think one of the things that gets missed in all this is it's not just checking off and saying it's approved regardless, but just because it's under this square footage. It still goes through review. It still goes through that planning and zoning department. Zach or one of his guys still looks at it. They still see potential problems and ask the appropriate department. Like, so I had one go through recently, and it required Public Works to look at it, and it still requires, if it's got a building on it, it's still going to, and it's a commercial setting, it's still going to require the fire marshal. It's still going to require the building department. There's still a ton of guardrails that's on this thing, regardless of whether it goes through DRC. So just the fact that it's going through planning and zoning with their thoroughness doesn't mean that other departments won't get involved if they see an issue comes up.
So,
So,
I would think of, like, if you said a 500 square foot, I mean, that's a pretty good sized parking area.
for my clarification, are we talking about which, because along with the square footages and the values, where are we talking? Because I'm hearing residential pole barn in my
No, no,
yard.
What we're talking about specifically, or what I started this conversation off specifically was ancillary structures to commercial property.
Okay, all right.
Not
now,
residential.
I guess I kinda-
Residential's got all, I mean, you can do stuff fairly easy, relatively speaking, in residential. My concerns are when you have a commercial property, and because it's categorized as commercial, a ton of stuff gets piled onto that, like multiple departments, multiple additional requirements, multiple things that get brought to the forefront because it is commercial. Without a mechanism in place to say, it's commercial, yeah, but what we're doing with this building is so minuscule in nature, we don't need all this. Like, that's that area I'm looking to fill. I'm not saying any commercial place gets any commercial building under such and such square. I'm saying an ancillary use building on a commercially zoned piece of property. If I were gonna say, I would say 1,200 or 1,500 square feet would be a decent size requirement.
So,
And
yeah.
you can also with that associate a value, like 12 or 1,500 square feet, provided it doesn't go over 30% of the value of the improvements there, or some other form of combination of criteria that make that to where Zach's department can say, oh yeah, this is a small scale project. We can approve this without spending the extra 2 months going through DRC and then having to come through various boards.
I could see that. I could see where you could come up with some kind of checklist where you'd say if it meets this requirement, then it has to go to DRC. If it doesn't, then they would approve it.
The other piece, and here's an additional piece that comes up when you get to the back and forth portion of this conversation is, yeah, but what if? What if they decide to do this, and what if they decide to do that? And the answer to that question is, the old adage when I was a building inspector, you have to be an inspector, not a suspector. Meaning, when they go outside the bounds of what they've told you they were gonna do, they're non-compliant. It's not the responsibility of Zach's department or this board or anybody else to guess at non-compliance and force somebody that is compliant to do an additional stuff because they might become non-compliant. So if I build a building and I tell you it's for parking, and then somebody goes, the code enforcement goes by and they're having, they've built office space in there and they're using it for office space, that's not we didn't do our job as planning, or we didn't do our job as planning and zoning or whatever. That is a job of somebody going beyond what they said they were gonna do, and the non-compliance is their issue.
That's right.
So, and I think it's important to reiterate that in these conversations, because it's very easy to say, yeah, but what if they do this? But yeah, very easily they could do this, like.
You'd be what if and every day.
So, Mr. Chairman, the reason you're bringing this forward is because it would take a land development code change in order for the new structure to,
Yes, currently, there are two
created.
paths, like, okay, for the example I've given, I have a commercial office and I want to put a parking carport behind it, a parking garage behind it. A carport that's for the owners of the building or whatever, it's ancillary to the primary use of the building. For that to get done, there's two paths. Either one, it goes through DRC with full-blown, have to go to every department, water management, and like everybody. Or path two, it falls on the shoulders of the director to say, this isn't a big enough project to require all this stuff. And then he has the ability to piece it and part it out to the departments he feels it's necessary for review. So, and that's a great path unless you're Zach and have to carry the burden of that decision and then defend it when the next guy gets turned down for something that was a legitimate complaint. That's what I'm saying. We need to insulate their department by providing the language in some sort of codified language to where he can say, well, because of this, I'm able to approve that without DRC approval. So that's where I'm going. That's the purpose of the discussion.
I understand, and like I say, I'm not very well versed in the permitting in Putnam County. I'm pretty well versed in another jurisdiction, And I will say that everything I've heard is handled at the staff level because we have thresholds that were established by that commission. So I kind of understand what you're saying, but my only other question is, can we even do this anytime soon because of state statutes? And I mean, are we just going to put this a little asterisk and put it in a parking lot somewhere because we can't change code for another millennia or so under current statutes? I mean,
Yeah,
I
so,
think we're becoming more relaxing with this.
well,
That's kind of the intent. The whole
So-
intent of the code,
so-
of the statute was to not restrict. I feel like we're given more opportunities to develop
as
with
viewed
that.
from where? Because it kind of goes back to my early days on this board. I wanted to change a few things, and I thought that we could streamline it, make it some things easier, some things more defined, but at the same time, more restrictive, I was told, is kind of as viewed from where and what perspective. So I guess I'm kind of asking.
Well, I think the restrictive would be viewed as to the end user. I mean, the people, the citizens of Putnam County. As long as you're less restrictive on them, then I don't see where.
well, and that's just it. So, right, not trying to play devil's advocate or beat a horse, but Mr. Williams is referring to, of course, Senate Bill 180. And that language, and I don't have it in front of me, so it's not verbatim, is we cannot contemplate or amend any language that would make it more restrictive, burdensome than what it currently is. And I do agree. If you're a contractor and you want to build a 1,000-square-foot structure for somebody's ancillary commercial use, yes, this would make it much less restrictive. But the property owner next door that has a house that relies on the DRC to say, no, you guys got to have a buffer, or your setbacks are wrong, or what have you, now we have just made it more burdensome to that property owner because we are bypassing a step in which additional review could go into this structure. And it's the nature of the beast. We don't know who is going to be burdened by this language until they file that lawsuit in the Circuit Court of Putnam County. The sunset on Senate Bill 180, as long as we don't get another storm this year, is, I believe, July of 2027. But we still have essentially an entire hurricane season between now and then.
And just, I am totally on board with you because where I am employed, it's like 50,000 square feet before it has to go before a board. It's big.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
totally
so,
understand I'm kind of shocked it is that burdensome, but at this
Well,
point, I don't know.
Here's one of the other, like, enlightened views I had. Like, I'm not talking about new construction of the whole thing. What I'm talking about is additional structure to an already established. So let's say I'm talking about an office building on a commercial zone piece of property. Like, you have to take into account that office building is compliant. Like, you have to assume that that's compliant. It was compliant when it went into place. So you have to assume that compliance for that structure is in place. Why should this new accessory structure cause a review of what is essentially the primary use of that building that has been allowed to be used? Meaning, why can't you make the assumption from the fact that it's an established use to not require any additional review? The review is it's already established. It's being used as it's properly supposed to be.
So I get your point, Mr. Chairman, completely. I think the key word is the accessory structure, ancillary structure to something that already exists. I get that. And when plans get submitted for the carport, pole barn, whatever the case may be, it's going to go through a building review. It's probably going to go through some type of zoning review as well.
That's correct.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
So you're hitting probably, I would suspect, 80-90% of the reviews that would take place anyway. You're hitting that. You may be leaving out public works. If it's commercial, you're not going to leave out the fire marshal. He's going to get a look at it. So you're still,
You're not leaving out public works, so they're gonna issue a driveway permit on.
so, I agree with what you're saying, and do we create a threshold, or do we do something more broad? I don't know, but I agree with what you're saying because of being accessory or ancillary to an existing structure, commercial structure. I agree.
So again, I go back to my original comment, though. Perhaps Zach and the team should come up with perhaps some recommendations how to streamline this, whether it goes to the DRC, not goes to the DRC or whatever, and some sort of template of how large or small the structure might be.
Well, and the last time this board directed us to look at a text amendment, I was informed to relay back to you guys that you're the ones that should be bringing us the proposed changes for us to kind of discuss at the meeting, and then we take it back in front of the BOCC. So
That's when I cried uncle and walked away.
So
I think the proper direction would probably be for us to, not necessarily table, but think about this until the next meeting, come up with some different, so let's put this on the agenda for the next meeting to have a discussion about this. That'll give Zach the opportunity to see what's best. We could possibly, I think the direction Zach probably needs is us to kind of give the ballpark idea, here's what we want to do. What do you think about 1,200 square feet and no more than 25% of the value of the property or the structure or whatever? We give them a direction and then let them flesh out exactly how it needs to, the language needs to occur. But I think he's got to have a ballpark place to start as a direction from us than him just coming up with it.
I think something for you guys to mull over while you're considering this is whether or not the existing use does conform to the zoning district, and whether or not the proposed addition is surrounded by like uses or maybe other incompatible uses. Because at the end of the day, the goal of the DRC is to ensure that whatever is being proposed is consistent and compatible with the area and the zoning district that it's within. So if we say, 1,200 square foot and 25% appraised value of the improvements or the primary use, that may not necessarily rule out any sort of non-conforming uses or surrounding inconsistent uses or incompatible uses.
So one thing that I would ask is, staff email us things that we should consider in our review of the land development code, things that we should be considering as well, just like you said, so we know that these are boxes that we need to review, and then maybe we can come back with some recommendations next meeting or sometime soon.
Okay, so I just need to be very clear on what you guys need from us as staff. So it sounds like you're wanting us to provide you guys with the code language related to the DRC and what constitutes the need for DRC.
No, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking just get reference the number where it requires DRC review. Give us that number. But also, if you kind of hear where we're tracking, where we're going, if there's things that we need to consider in our decision-making process, does a lot currently conform? Things of that nature. Spell those out to us, so when we're going and doing our stuff, we're not forgetting things that could be a greater impact.
And like, who are we knocking off? What are we knocking out of this?
Health
Water
department.
management? Is water are we looking?
Well, so that was the discussion Zach and I had. Water management doesn't get involved until 4,000 square feet of thing. So they're not going to be involved in it. But one of the biggest things is the time constraint. You know what I mean? Like as a residential, like when I do a residential carport building and I come in here, it's a master filed thing that Carolina Carport says, I walk in with a site plan and basically walk out with a permit. And it's a 1 day, 3 day event at best. And whereas if I come in to do the same exact thing, but the property zone commercial, then it becomes this big production. And that's the whole, I'm an advocate for putting language in there that says, even in the non-conforming stuff, that you have to, if it's compliant before you ask for the improvement, you have to assume that it continues being compliant, which is some of the language, like in the building code especially, where it says the thing's allowed to continue in use as it was built, and even if it's not in compliance with the existing code until you go over 50% of the value. So, and in my opinion, zoning should be the same way. If I have a commercial building that was built in 1985 and was compliant at the time it was built, I should be able to continue in that use of that property under that condition, under that it should be considered compliant. And if I want to add an accessory structure to it, then the view of that property should be, that property's in compliance, and the addition of that building doesn't have any bearing on whether or not it has to be up to compliance. And I don't know if there's language in the statute or anywhere else that would contradict that, but from just a logical view of how you get to a continued use of a piece of property, I don't see why compliance as today has to be forced on a piece of property that has been in compliance since the time it was created.
Are you talking about a building compliance or a zoning compliance?
Yes.
So both.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is this, and I don't know if I'm coming across correctly. Let's say I built an office building in 95, and I built it. You got records that I built it. It was in compliance at the time. The property's in compliance at the time. Like, without having a codes case brought against it for some sort of non-compliant issue, when I come in and apply for an additional permit on that, the natural assumption should be, and the natural view of that piece of property from all departments, in my opinion, should be, it's compliant. There's nothing to, it's that I'm having to prove I'm innocent kind of deal. You know what I mean? Like, if it's non-compliant because you got a codes issue, then that's something that can be brought up. But if I've been in compliance since 95 and I want to build accessory structure to what I'm doing there, your assumption as the building department or the planning department or any other department reviewing this should be that it's in compliance. And what they're trying to do is compliant also without having to force new compliance requirements on something that already should be considered compliant because it was when it was built.
I get that from the building perspective, but from the zoning perspective, maybe not so much. I mean, my example would be the Shrine Club. You know, what happens if the Shrine Club were to come in and want to make an expansion or put an accessory structure on their property? They're non-conforming, so they would have to go through a zoning change to get conforming before you would grant that. So from a building perspective.
But see, that's beating up the Shrine Club on something that's a non-conforming use that was okay when it was put there.
Yeah, but
the stuff changed around it.
Yes.
Like, it didn't change, the building didn't change after the zoning changed around it.
Zoning changed after they built the buildings.
Yes.
And that's what happens to a lot
So,
of people.
if I could, I think there's a few things that, if we're gonna consider this, you gotta, and this is just me thinking, you gotta think about the conforming lot, like, is it a non or a conforming lot? Is it an allowable use to begin with? And then what I've seen other places do, they have a threshold for redevelopment, they have a threshold for new development, and those take you down different tracks. Just because that building's been there since 1985 and they want to add something to it and they've been using it like that, a lot of times, so you're saying if there's no code issue against it, well, that just means that the neighbor wasn't willing to go on the record as complaining about an issue, because that's, now you've got to give your name and everything, but it's also an opportunity to go, this place is, you know, we're not going to build on more structure to it because it's not.
Yeah, how is that not a violation of the Fourth Amendment? I'm like, you know, you can't, illegal search of, you asking me to provide all this stuff for my.
No, you're actually, so nobody's kicking in the door in certain
No, but
areas.
You're forcing the applicant to reveal stuff that
So
should not be required to be revealed.
In 1985, ADA laws were way different than they are today. So you add to that building, and you're not changing your parking lot, everything has to come up to compliance. That's federal law. So, and that's where you get into these
Okay.
sticky wickets on stuff.
Right, well, the ADA compliance falls into the building department and to the fire marshal.
While I understand what you're saying about the DRC, I do, and I question why it has to go all the way through a DRC for everything. I'm just saying if we start defining these these things, again, I just go back to, while we're considering where we're gonna carve this out from the DRC, you know, I don't know, there needs to be clear-cut direction for staff and everybody in the future to go, okay, it's not gonna be an easy code to write.
That's why we're not doing it today. I wanted to bring it up so that we can all be thinking about it, because there needs to be something easier, you know, like, there needs to be something easier for the people, and does not need to be so much focus on bringing a piece of property up because of the addition of something that's not the primary use, it's ancillary to the existing use that's already there.
Before I got on the board, I had to go through DRC, and I think it was not long after or right before I went on that, you guys started fast-tracking DRCs to where 3-4 weeks, is that accurate?
So we hold two DRC meetings a month, at the first and the third Tuesday. And we require, essentially it's a 4-week review. So we receive the application, we find it sufficient, we tell you that you're going to this DRC date, which is approximately at least 4 weeks away. Sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 6, depending on holidays and the way that the calendar month lines up. But yeah, I mean, within 6 months, within 6 weeks of receiving that application, the DRC has met and has issued a final order. More often than not. I mean, there are times where we require a resubmittal, but that's usually for a much more detailed, advanced project, new development, not necessarily the 1,000-square-foot pole barns or what have you.
6 weeks versus 6 days, I mean,
Yeah,
you know what I
I
mean,
get
like,
it.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
It'll be something very hard to write.
Well,
I'm not saying it can't be done, I'm just saying it's gonna be difficult.
everything worth doing is.
That's right.
So Zach, were we clear on our request to staff about what we're looking for?
I think so. You guys, as the commission, are looking for just additional guidance on why DRC matters. So conforming uses, conforming site improvements, non-conforming site improvements, the like. Is that correct?
Good start.
And I mean, at the end of the day, I can start firing off emails to you guys and you'll be like, wait a second, this is not what we need to know right now for this, right? And then we can change direction. But in any event, I don't know if it'll be myself, Michael, Nancy, a combination. One of us will be sure to initiate this communication. But again, with it being appointed members, we're going to have to do so in a blind copied format. When you guys reply, please do not reply all, because we don't want to have any issue with the sunshine law.
Or even to a point about the streamlining. In other words, if you can still use the same construct, but based upon the things they're chatting about, you streamline it and you don't have to do this, that, but you still have the same process. It's just that you reduce some of the requirements within the process.
No, that's not a bad idea either. Rather than identifying a square footage of the building that is omitted from DRC, you define a square footage threshold which is subject to a 2-week review rather than the 4-week review, or something along those lines. But again, it is a very challenging bit of code to try to legislate. And you know, again, it's not what we're trying to accomplish, it's what we fail to foresee in what we're trying to accomplish, and that's where we're going to get hung up.
All right. Any other new business? All right, well, how about approval of the minutes from the July 8th meeting?
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. All right. All right, let's call it quits, 5:14.
Wasn't that fun?
It always is.